Join Kevin Hart as he dives into the minds of some of your favorite celebrities. This is Gold Mines with Kevin Hart.
What up, world? Oh my goodness. You already know what it is. This is another episode of Gold Mines. And what do we do here on Gold Mines? Say it with me. Get inside the minds of amazing people. And today, well, the mind is not only amazing, but oh my God, it's great. And you can't just say that. When I say that, I gotta have great receipts to match the great energy, to match the great title. Holy cow, how do I do it? How do I do it? I mean, did you just hear that? Did you just hear the play on the word great? Okay, let's get to why. This guest here is the first Black woman to earn an EGOT. That is an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Starred in several classic films. Sister Act, Color Purple, Ghost. We can go on and on. She has also been a co-host on The View for nearly 17 years. Television history is not just getting on the show, it's keeping a show on. You see that? Those are the little things that people have a hard time really processing. It's not just getting a show, it's figuring out how to keep a show on. And when you're a part of success like that, and you're part of a continued amount of success like that, well, that makes you great. Guys, she also released her new comic book, which is The Change, on July 9th. Her memoir, Bits and Pieces, My Mother, My Brother, and Me, came out in May of this year. And she also narrates the audiobook. I love the fact that she's still going. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for the legend herself, Whoopi Goldberg. What'd you think? What'd you think, Whoopi? Come on now.
Well, I like being Goldberg on Gold Mines with Kevin. See how
I didn't even get that. See that? See that? You took it somewhere that I didn't even think to take it. That's what you just did. You just
nice to be with you. I don't get to see you very often, so this is a treat.
It really is. It's going to be it's an amazing treat for me. And I just want to say something at the top. You've been coming up in a lot of my conversations because I'm playing with a new idea of creativity. And, you know, it stems off of just what you basically honed in on and, you know, made a thing. And it's the concept attached to the one woman show or the one man show. And, you know, those that have been able. This is a big deal. Yeah. Yes, it's a very big deal. And it's, you know, it's not stand-up comedy. You're looking at another form of talent, storytelling and acting that's put on display in a manner that's like, it's theater. It's theater to another level, right? And, you know, this is something that I've been talking about, but it's based off of yourself and John Leguizamo, who, you know, I was using as examples of just like this thing that it's not necessarily forgotten, but it's not highlighted in the way that it was in the time. And I was like, I feel like there's a surge to bring it back, and I want to be a part of that conversation and discussion. So I hope your ears have been burning because I have been talking about you a lot. I've been using you as an example.
I think one of the last times I saw you, I asked you when you were going to write your show. And you know what it is? The truth of the matter is, lots of people have done it. Not everyone can. You know, there's a freedom that you have to have when you're doing that allows you to fly at your leisure and make changes as you're in flight. Because unlike a straight up show, it's not going to be the same thing every night. It can't be because your mind works too fast. And even though you've written stuff down, you'll be in the middle of telling a story and you just look at the audience and say, you know what? That brings me to a different story, which I have never told before, but I'm going to tell you all tonight. It could be the truth. It could be a lie, but nobody knows. They're just happy that you're talking to them.
What is it? This is actually like a great segue just to get into the early stages of this conversation, right? Because, you know, knowing Whoopi Goldberg is knowing, like I said, a lot of success that's been attached to your name throughout your years in this business. But the start is what some people may not be aware of. As we talk about the one woman show and we talk about just you and your entry to this business, what is it? What is it that energized or synergized you to go in that direction? How did that start? I mean, it was stand up and then that or what? Like what was the never?
It was always theater. It was always theater. And I've always been a storyteller, and I went to Europe for the first time and came back and really wanted to talk about what I had seen and how it affected me, because I ended up at the Anne Frank house. I'd ended up in all of these different places. And I had to figure out, did I just want to come back and do a travelogue conversation?
Oh, wow.
And I
Okay.
thought, no, let's find some people. Who's the strangest person to tell you the story of my experience at the Anne Frank house? Oh, I know, a junkie. Because that's the last person you're going to be thinking about, talking to you about an experience, because people forget that junkies are actually people first.
Mm-hmm.
They were they're someone's kid first, and they went through all these lives. So Fontaine became my way of explaining to people all the funny, weird, scary stuff that I was going through, from getting on the plane and how I was dealing with the stewardesses, to the people behind me who kept kicking my chair. And so, as you know, as this character, I could talk about anything and say anything. And if I needed to get deep and heavy, if I needed the audience to stop and listen to what I was saying because I was making a point, I could tell them, just everybody stop breathing for 20 seconds. This is what those people had to deal with. So I could use characters to explain my view of the world. And so that was what I did. I just started building people. I had a friend of mine who for years was at the Center for Independent Living. He was in a wheelchair, and he was one of the people that fought to make sure that the indentations on the street allowed them to use their wheelchairs to cross the street. Because if you're in a chair and you come up to a sidewalk, you're screwed. So they fought hard. So he said, why don't you ever talk about us? I was like, because I didn't remember it. He said, none of that makes any sense. Figure out what to do. So I did. I figured out a piece, and I wrote it for him about a girl who was going to be getting married. She's physically very, very differently abled, but someone fell in love with her, because I wanted people to know people love who they love. And the physical isn't always the most important thing. But sometimes, she says, when she dreams and then her body morphs into what we think of as a regular body, from this to this. And that happens on stage. So there was a way to, so I said, and the first time I did it, I said, okay, is that okay? And he just said, I can't talk to you. They got my friend. And about 2-3 weeks later, he said, it was more than okay. You just freed up thousands of us.
Holy cow.
That we dream. I mean so that's
the best type of approval that you can ask for.
It's the best. It's the best.
Yes.
So, and then I was doing my show, and Mike Nichols came, and he was kind of blown away because he was on the last boat out of Germany.
Okay.
Just before the Nazis closed everything down. So my junkie, talking about his time at the Anne Frank house, got him. And then, months later, getting the invitation from Steven Spielberg saying, come, I need to see your show, but I need you to do it here in Los Angeles, because I'm in the middle of doing something. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to be in a Spielberg, Jaws 17. You're trying to get Whoopi swimming, And instead he said, I can't wait to see your show, but I want you to know that Alice Walker and Quincy Jones and I have been talking, and we want to invite you to be Celie in The Color Purple. I was like, no, thank you.
You said no. You said no at the top. Really?
Yeah. I never made a movie.
What time frame? What time frame was this? Will be like you when you were doing you're experiencing success with your one woman show. It's picking up. It's gaining right. It's gaining steam. It's gaining conversation. And to your point now, people are talking about it, and more importantly, people are hitting you to come. People want to see the thing that's being talked about. Yeah. So what's the time frame that you started to how long were you doing it up until this point? Like when this offer came?
Well, I had been doing the show for about 4 or 5 years in different places, because I lived in Berkeley. And
Okay.
so lots of different people got to see my shows. And then we went to Europe and did it and came back. So this is 1982, 81,
Wow.
82.
Okay.
And, you know, I said no because I didn't understand how movies were made. So I was like, listen, I don't know if I'm a movie actor. I could really suck. He said, have you sucked before? I said, oh my God, yeah. He said, well, if you start to suck, I'll let you know. But this is the part I want you to do. I was like, okay. I can't wait for them to say, look, you got to go home.
What was the time period of convincing? Like what was the time period of like conversation before you agreed to do it?
Well, it was really, listen, I don't think it's a good idea. You know, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not. And he said, and that's when he asked me. I said, because sometimes I suck really bad. And he said, so you have sucked before? Have you sucked before? I said, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And he said, well, if I see it, I'll stop it. But this is the part I want you for. And I was like, okay.
So it was more insecurity about doing something of that magnitude because your comfort was in the space of theater.
No, I didn't know jack about movies.
Okay.
I had no idea. And when we got to set, one of the first questions I asked him was like, how come you don't just shoot it like a movie, like a theater show? You know, get it done. This weeks and weeks stuff. He said, well, because we have to go close. We got to do all this. I was like, okay.
Hey, Mr. Spielberg, real quick, why are you wasting all this goddamn time? Listen, why don't y'all just do this and do it in like the play? Yes. We'll be out of here in 2 days. Yeah. Why don't y'all do it like that?
Yeah. I said, and I said, what do I do if I have a line that is funny? I mean, there's no audience, so I don't. He said, oh no, there is an audience. I said, there's an audience? He said, oh yeah. I said, where is it? He said, come on. And he walked me over to the camera. Yeah. He said, they're right in there. And you can't hear them, but they can see what you're doing. And they'll know. Wow. And then he pointed to all the folks that were part of making a move. And he said, and these guys are watching. And while they may not be able to laugh out loud, you'll know. Because if you mistreat them and you don't treat them well, you'll know how to act better. Because your crew is everything.
I was going to say for the listeners, Whoopi is referring to the crew. She was referring to, lighting, the camera team, lighting, the gaffers, your craft services, your ADs, as entertainers that feed off of the live energy of a crowd, Whoopi and myself, her, of course, theater, me with the stand-up background, that energy on the set can be everything for you at times, especially if you're insecure just about the space and place of a performance. Like, wow, like this is where I feel like I should be getting a laugh, but I'm not hearing it. So am I doing the said thing right? And I love how you're talking about you and Steven's relationship in these early stages. My question to you, what a cast at this time. What was your reaction to being with the cast, right? Like, of course they all weren't the major stars that they are today, but at this point they had some steam. Danny, Whoopi, Oprah, like
Caesar. Adolph was who did a Soldier Story. He was like no joke. I mean, this actor. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go here. And he was like, you're fine, Whoopi, you're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it, you got this. I was like, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Caesar. I had the best time. I had the best relationship because one thing that Steven is he's a big film addict. So he was able to talk to me in the language of film. So he would say, now you remember that piece where we see Robert Duvall's character for the first time, Boo Radley for the first time in To Kill a Mockingbird. I said, yeah. He said, that's the feeling I want. When she moves that thing and it's him and you see him for the first time and he sees her, that's the feel I want. I said, okay, I can do that. Because if you tell me visually, I can do everything.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gold Mines with Kevin Hart. You can catch the rest of this episode exclusively on the SiriusXM app. We'll see you next week for a full episode of Gold Mines with Kevin Hart.
Gold Mines with Kevin Hart is a Sirius XM and Laugh Out Loud radio production and executive produced by Kevin Hart, Mike Stein, Brian Smiley, Eric Eddings, and Eric Weil. Produced by Danny Sellers and Leslie Guam. Engineered by Danny Sellers.